Welcome to the Old SwitchAroo, where we talk gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo. We're the often imitated, never emulated podcast diving deep into Nintendo classics. If you like, you should like and subscribe. Today we play Tetris N99. Mike, let's begin, cause this bit's wearing thin. It would be for the best if you introduced our guest.
All right. Well, with a musical introduction like that, I think it is only appropriate for such a musical game that we have Jennifer Miller Hammel, who is the producer and host of Arcade on Classic California.
Hello. Okay, JMO, fantastic. Because you know that there's a thing out there called the Tetris Opera, right? That they do on video games live.
I know that now.
Yeah, so it's a whole thing. So this is the Tetris Opera Part 2, my friends. I love
Oh,
it. It's so good. Thank you.
I really tried hard for you. I wanted to make it special.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fantastic.
And so you have a streaming show, kind of pseudo radio show about classical music.
Right. So my day job at Classical California is that I'm the morning host there. So I'm up at the crack of dawn helping people get ready for work and get ready for school. And when I started there, it's been 9 years now since I did my first show over there. And I really wanted to get more video game music on the air because they were already doing some pretty good things with like movie music and even some TV themes, like Game of Thrones would pop up every so often. But my background is classical music. I'm a singer by training, and but I've also been a gamer since I was in the single digits. So I've always loved game music, and I always thought, well, why don't we hear more gaming music in the concert hall or on classical radio? Because it is the classical music of today. And so one of my big missions when I started at Classical California was to start sneaking more video game music on the air. So I went into our system and I was like, "Ooh, we've got the Fallout theme by Enon Zor," and then I would sneak that on. And it's like, "Oh, we've got some of that, like London Symphony, the greatest video games music ever. The CDs that had like the soldier playing the cello on the front." Which has a version of Tetris actually on there. It's a really cool, like klezmer version of the Tetris theme. And then through that, I was able to pitch a streaming channel to them that is hosted by Classical California. You can find it on our website and our app, and I'll give the guys the information on that so you can link it in the show notes and go find it. But it's now up to 27 hours of video game music and classical music used in video games, and then other pieces of music that are kind of like the same vibe or might have come from composers that have worked in the gaming world, like Yu Peng Chen, who wrote the music for Genshin Impact. We've got stuff on there that he wrote for the Classical Concert Hall. But it's a chance for you to just go on, and it does act like a radio station. So you could tune in different times of day because it is such like an offset from a regular day. You can tune in the morning and in the evening, and then in the morning again the next day, and you're going to hear a different segment of it. So it does kind of feel like a radio station. But it's called Arcade, and it's my pride and joy. And if you haven't heard it yet, please go check it out.
Yeah, I was vibing to your show last night,
Hey.
preparing my show notes and getting yelled at by Maestro. You have such an impeccable taste. I popped off for Tsukasa Saito's Elden Ring theme,
Yeah.
and I played the hell out of that game. And I didn't realize until your show last night, like this has always just been the menu music, and my brain knew the menu music was good, but I would just be clicking past because my friends are waiting to play online.
Right.
So separating it from the game, I really appreciated how beautiful that score is. And I wouldn't have had that thought if you weren't presenting them in this way. So I gotta ask, is there a game soundtrack or a game series that has that you think is really special to you or your go-to? And Mike, I want to know yours too. Like mine are the Street Fighter themes, which are not really like classical music, but they are kind of a bop, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Like Ken's theme. Oh my
oh,
God.
right? So good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, when people ask me, because I do get this question, like, what was it in the gaming world that really said, okay, you need to explore game music more? Like I said, I've been a gamer since the 80s. So, of course, I grew up playing like Mario, Zelda. Bubble Bobble was one of my favorites, with that earworm of a theme that just gets stuck in your head over and over and over again. But when I started moving into PC gaming, it was the Myst series from, all the way back in 93. That was the first time that I was playing a game and I had to stop what I was doing. I was, wandering around the main island. And I remember I was standing in front of the door to the library and I just stopped and I had to listen to what was going on, not just in the sound design with like the wind blowing and the birds chirping, but then also Robin Miller's like just really like subtle atmospheric score. And it was again like so subtle, but it adds just this additional layer to the like fabric of that game. And so when I then went from that game into Riven, when it came out a few years later, and he built on that score even more, it really made me sort of stop and take notice. And then so when I would go into other games like the Journeyman Project or The Longest Journey, like all of these like very, really like formative adventure games from the late 90s and the early aughts, like I really was hearing what these composers were doing. And I was like, this music really stands up to anything that I would hear in my favorite movie or prestige television show. And again, so the question was, why isn't this music out there? And so now, I think about, gaming series like Mass Effect. I think about, Enon Zor's work on both the Fallout series, well, and, his work in Dragon Age, and then, of course, in Starfield. I say what you want about Starfield. The score is great. And then, of course, anything that composer Jessica Curry touches is gorgeous. She wrote the score for a game called Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is this walking sim where you're in a little town in England. And it was like it's like the Rapture, like everybody just gets up and disappears, and you have to explore the town and piece together the mystery to find out what happened. And it's this beautiful like choral score, so there's lots of like English folk song and singers on it, but it's all original music. Like she did some stuff where she like based it on existing English folk song, but then she like leapt off from that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like I show these scores to people who are like, oh, video game music is just, bleeps, bloops, and electric guitars. And I'm like, but you haven't heard Jessica Curry.
There you go. There you go. Mike, what's your answer?
I mean, see, now I feel like it's going to be not.
Bleeps and bloops.
No.
um,
He's like Sonic Spinball.
I would say the one that I would drive around to, I'd have Cruis'n USA.
Yeah, the Cruis'n USA arcade. And Jennifer, get a
100%.
load of this. This is how clever Mike is. He had like this huge playlist of like 500 songs, and every so often he'd throw in the checkpoint because that it's a 4 second soundtrack. But as Mike's driving, he's like, "Oh, I passed Best Buy. That must have been a checkpoint in this track." You know what I mean?
I had a lot more music than that, and so what I had done was I just had all of my music on shuffle,
Mhm.
and I just had like 200 or 300 copies of that
Of
in the
checkpoint.
playlist, so that it would just every so often shuffle its way through there, and it was great.
See, that's what I'm missing from arcade. I need to throw some checkpoints in every once in a while. That's what's going on.
There you go.
The one other comes to mind that I think is more modern, and so I don't want to say more sophisticated, but it feels slightly more on par with some of the things you're talking about, would be the main music for Halo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 100%.
That was a whole moment. The Gregorian chanter. Is it
Hmm.
Gregorian chanting? Jennifer, you would know.
It's Gregorian-ish. So I've had the opportunity to sing on a few of the video games live concerts, and I remember when they first handed us that score, and I got to because it's for men, but they told the women they're like, if you want to sing it down in the men's octave, feel free. And so it was like challenge accepted. But I just remember doing that like ooh like thing there at the beginning, and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. It was that, and then when they gave us the Heaven Shall Tremble from Diablo,
Oh,
the ba 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 thing. I just remember getting to sing that too, and that was just quite fantastic.
so hype. So
Yeah.
hype.
So I wanted to also ask you, beyond the arcade stuff, is that you also have been at like video game conferences and stuff
Hmm.
talking about video game music. And I was kind of wondering, what is the specific part of that intersection of video games and video game music as a topic that you are focused on?
Well, a couple of things. For me, I really like sort of digging into why this music, as a listener, what is it about this music that tickles that nostalgia button for us? Like, what is it that gets us so emotionally invested in the musical side of it? Because if you've ever been to a video game music concert, Whether it's something like Video Games Live where they play from a bunch of different franchises, or if you go to something like the Dream Worlds Orchestra where they play Final Fantasy pieces. And that is another one, by the way. Final Fantasy music is just that's a whole world. But what is it about that emotional connection that gets that audience so stirred up? It's you go to a concert hall and it's like you're at a rock show because people get so excited. So I like focusing on that. And then I also, to the other side of that particular thing with talking about orchestras playing this music, how can I sort of demystify the idea that this music is not as worthy of being performed in a concert hall to classical organizations? What is it that I can do as an advocate for this music, for these composers, for these franchises? How can I go and speak up for them to organizations like the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra or the LA Phil or the San Francisco Symphony to convince them that these composers need to be heard alongside the music of Stravinsky and Ravel and Beethoven? Because while it's great that some places like the San Francisco Symphony have started doing video game themed concerts, I feel like, yes, that is a step forward, but I also feel like a piece of gaming music, if you've ever been to the Hollywood Bowl, usually they'll have, like, if you go to one of their classical nights, they'll have like a flavor piece that will start the show. So it's usually like a world premiere from a new composer or something more modern, and then they'll play the big masterworks. Why can't that flavor piece at the beginning of the show be a piece by Austin Wintory? You know? Why can't we put something from Sword of the Sea on there, especially since it just won a Grammy, right? Like that should be a way to like integrate something from the gaming world into a regular classical concert. So I I feel like that as someone who understands and has feet in both of these worlds, that I can be an advocate and a voice for these two worlds trying to find a way to come together to finally cross that bridge and understand that it is not a scary thing. It's actually good for these organizations to explore the world of game music.
Yeah, it's a crucial part of the games as art discussion,
Right.
and I think you're doing such a good service, to the gaming community, both as a group and as like an academic pursuit, because just now we're seeing people become adults having grown up with these things,
Hmm.
and so we don't have sort of a sneer about it. Like we kind of understand that gaming is a part of growing up and it's part of our lives, and so that's why I think it's really cool what you're doing.
Thank you.
Is this something that movie music had to go through as well? Because like the Hollywood Bowl, like for years has been having like John Williams, and I'm curious because at this point it feels like sort of anyone would say it doesn't seem out of place for the LA Philharmonic to be playing this music from Star Wars or something, and kind of no one seems to question that. Was this a process that had to happen for film previously? That it's just that video games music is now doing that same thing that film music would have had to do at some point, or was that more readily accepted?
I think it was something that movie music had to go through, definitely, because I was fortunate that I had a very musical family, so we used to go to performances a lot. And I remember, growing up in the 80s, if you went to a classical concert hall, you wouldn't see Bernard Herrmann or Miklos Rozsa or John Williams. Of course, in his 80s heyday. You wouldn't have seen any of that on a regular concert season. But I think what happened and what changed was John Williams being the director of the Boston Pops. And when his music started to become associated with these huge tentpole films that were just universally loved, and he would start putting some of that music on his concerts, and then he was tapped to write themes for the LA Olympics back in the 80s. And I want to say, like, besides like Ennio Morricone and Bernard Herrmann, he was one of the first composers that really came to superstardom through his work in the movie world. And so and plus just the fact that if you put that music on its own, take it away from Indiana Jones, take it away from Superman, it is just really good music. Um, like you can't help but listen to the march from Superman and just be like, hell yeah, I'm gonna take on the day. It's just such a good piece of music. And I think that's what Classical organizations were starting to realize at that point that this music can be separated from the media that it was written for, and it still has emotional impact. It still tells a story. And I think today, audiences, again, people who are programming classical concerts are starting to understand that with gaming music. I mean, there is a lot of soundtrack music out there that is very much that. It is just musical wallpaper because that is what you're supposed to have in a movie or a video game. But they're also starting to recognize composers like Austin Wintory who can write incredible music that stands on its own away from games like Journey and Sword of the Sea and The Pathless and Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which is just a great score. So I think now that orchestras are more open to the idea, I do think we're going to be seeing more of it. But I do think in terms of game music in particular, there's still a really long way to go. And maybe we'll turn that corner in the next 10 years. I don't know. I would like to think so. But I think also, again, as we, people who grew up playing video games are getting into this more like leadership oriented space, we might be seeing more of that in the future. Fingers crossed. There's always a chance, but we'll see.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Hmm.
Well, my friends, these blocks aren't going to pile up on their own. Are you guys ready to do some lines?
Yeah.
I like that,
Nice.
Mike. Calm down,
Nice.
Mike.
Nice.
So let's begin our discussion of the Tetris series, first released on the Game Boy in 1989. According to Nintendo Classics, Tetris, the iconic block sliding puzzle game, is here. Easy to pick up, yet impossible to put down. Create solid horizontal lines by deftly maneuvering. I love the word deft. Oh, I love that word. Deftly maneuvering the falling. Oh, okay. Tetraminos? Did I nail it in one? How do you say that word, Mike? It's not tetraminos. It's tetranom.
I think I would say tetraminos, but I'm...
Yeah, I would say Tetraminos.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, tetraminos into place. Clear as many lines as possible before the screen is overrun with tetraminos, or however you say it. Work your way up from the easiest setting or crank up the speed to increase the challenge. Either way, you're in store for hours of entertainment, all over again. In one-player games, you can choose between two modes, A-type, where you keep clearing lines until it's game over, or B-type, where you aim for a high score with a limited number of lines. And in competitive two-player games, you win by either being first to clear 30 lines or stacking your opponent's tetraminos, I like mine better, all the way to the top. So, Mike had the fun idea of covering 4 games for our Tetris series. We're going to be stacking OG Tetris on the Game Boy against Tetris on the NES, Tetris DX on the Game Boy Color, and finishing with the combo with Tetris 99 on Nintendo Switch Online. Rather than having 4 separate box art discussions, I think we should compare them in a little Tetris boxing match. So, you guys have any thoughts on the packaging of these games?
Oh, I mean, I can tell you with Tetris DX, I'm a big fan of space shuttles. Again, growing up in the 80s.
Yeah.
Gosh, but I don't know. There's something about the original Tetris Game Boy box that just excites me because I knew when I was at Toys R Us, I had found the gaming section when I saw Tetris. So,
Jennifer, why are you tilting your head like that, Jennifer?
oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm trying to look at it because it's sort of stacked in a turned configuration, sort of like Tetraminos.
It was driving me insane that neither of you were acknowledging that I rotated the images.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because if I didn't acknowledge it, then I wouldn't have to make that happen on the video.
Wait, no, show it like this.
Like,
Plenty of people have talked about the Tetris box art, Mike. Nobody has been stupid or brilliant enough to talk about the Tetris box art rotated. But I do agree. I think that Jennifer's right. So the Tetris on the NES and Game Boy had more or less identical box arts. You have the tetraminos falling from the heavens kind of towards the customer at an angled look. And then the Game Boy Color sequel, same kind of concept, but you have the space imagery of the sort of space race element of this. Tetris 99, I think, is kind of cool in the way that it's showing off the gameplay mechanic of seeing your 98 other opponents in the background. But Mike, I'm going to predict, I think you like the original Game Boy one the best.
I think so, just because it's simplest. Although, what is a really interesting thing to notice here, I feel like all depictions of this show a bunch of the blocks falling at once, which is not how the game works.
No,
mhm.
it's one at a time. But I mean, it's more exciting that way. It's like a rain of blocks. I thought you were going to appreciate the tagline "From Russia with Fun."
Okay, I was about to say that. Yeah, I had forgotten that was on there. From Russia with fun. That's great. And then I also love how they've got the little like, oh, by the way, you can sit really close to someone else with a cable and play this two-player sticker on there with the game link. That's right.
It was one of
That's
the very first. It was like
yeah.
Mahjong was first, and this might have been like the second or third game
Hmm.
that was mobile. So, Mike, you have something fun from the history of Tetris. You've found a review of the original game. I'll just let you explain it.
This is a 2008 review of Tetris that is talking about the original game that it's a wonderful review. This is from, wish I could read my own notes better. I think this is Objective Ministries.
Okay, is that a website?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be a nice counterpoint to how Nintendo describes what Tetris is. Tetris is an action puzzle game where the player rotates falling block shapes to make them fit together in a pile. When a row is filled, it disappears, keeping the height of the pile of blocks from increasing. As the game progresses, it continually speeds up until the player starts making mistakes that allow the blocks to reach the top of the game area, ending the game. Tetris is unwinnable. You can only put off your inevitable defeat. This fatalistic aspect of the game should come as no surprise, since it was originally created in 1985 in the Soviet Union, where the atheist government taught everyone that there is nothing but a bleak, pointless existence followed by death, with no chance for salvation. It is claimed that the word Tetris comes from the game pieces all being made of 4 blocks. In reality, the game was named in mockery of the Trinity by adding a 4th hypostasis, the communist state, to the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Because it is simple to program, versions of Tetris can be found on every game, computer, and operating system. There have even been implementations of Tetris done under computer-controlled lights in office buildings, turning the lighted windows into the falling blocks. The ubiquity of Tetris is also because it is highly addictive. Its repetitive gameplay and use of a repetitive Russian folk tune causes players to slip into a hypnagogic state, making them receptive to the communistic themes inherent in the game imagery. Everyone is an individualistic block that must be made to fit together in Soviet conformity, and sometimes whole lines of people are made to disappear without any explanation. This is intentional, since, like all work done by the Soviet Academy of Science where Tetris was developed, it was part of secret military research, in this case having to do with mind control. The US military also researched mind-controlled video games in the 1980s, including one called Polybus, but we never used them during the Cold War, unlike the Soviets, who unleashed Tetris into the general public, where it's still affecting people to this day. Because of its fatalistic worldview and the danger it poses to people's God-given free will, all implementations of Tetris get 0 crosses.
Wow.
Oh, well, that's a hot take on Tetris, my friends.
That wasn't in the manual, Mike?
I don't believe it was.
You know what I love about that whole thing is that it all hinges, that whole conspiracy theory hinges on the idea that Tetris is unwinnable. And like, so just imagine him learning that and just him. I'm going to assume him. Okay, that might be problematic, but that felt that felt himmy.
I'm not going to argue with you. So
Okay.
yeah.
Wow, Mike, thank you so much. We'll just put a giant asterisk on this section of the video and call it allegedly, but holy hell. Well, that's way more fun than my behind the scenes trivia. Tetris has been one of the easiest retro games for me to research. First of all, Apple released a Tetris historical black comedy thriller starring Taron Egerton. Friends of the show, Nate Brown from Midhunters, said it is decidedly not mid. Have either of you seen this one?
I haven't actually.
I haven't, because it's on Apple.
Oh, okay. Well, leave a comment if you like it. And Nate, if you're listening, chime in, let us know what you liked about it. Much to my delight, Tetris.com also has a lengthy fun facts section where I picked up most of these gems. According to the 2014 Guinness Book of World Records, Tetris was the first video game in outer space when cosmonaut Alexander Serabov brought his Game Boy to the MIR space station in
Mir.
1993. Mir, okay. What does it stand for? Mir.
Yeah, I just know it as mirror.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought that.
You don't think it's an acronym? In my notes it says all caps, and I'm an English teacher, so
Yeah, no, sometimes I just do it. One of them means It's just like village, something along lines like village or something in Russian, but that
It
might have been the other one.
Peace or World is what
Oh,
yes.
okay. Well, they brought it to the Mir space station in 1993. The 2017 Guinness World Record book also credits Tetris as the video game with the most officially licensed versions ever released. Across 65 different platforms, how many different versions of Tetris do you think have been released to date? Okay, ready? Price is Right rules. I want both your guesses, closest without going over. 65 different platforms. How many versions of the game have been officially released?
I'm going to say 250.
250. Okay, Mike?
I'm gonna say 85.
Jennifer was way closer. 234. Really close.
Wow.
You got that musician brain. You got the math in here, and I saw
Yeah.
you chugging. In 2019, Alex Trebek had mustache and egg on his face when he read an infamously incorrect Tetris clue that names the Tetris pieces as Orange Ricky, Hero, and Smash Boy. According to Polygon.com, these names were a viral joke from Twitter user Vechetto, who had photoshopped them into pages of the NES manual, and the Jeopardy researchers fell for it.
Does have a little bit of a Thomas was afraid kind of vibe there.
I'm not
Yeah.
smart enough to get your jokes, but that's okay.
It's a indie game where like all the characters are basically like basic polygons.
Oh, okay.
They have names and stuff, but
Right.
it's that one's a square, that one's a rectangle.
Got you. Got you. And speaking of mistakes, Tetris.com is actually outdated. Okay, so Tetris, you listening? Tetris? Okay, update your website. It credits Drexel University for creating the largest video game in history. When in 2014, they used LEDs on the 29-story Citrus Center to make a playable skyscraper version. But this record was smashed by Red Bull in 2025 when they used over 2,000 drones to project a playable Tetris board over the Dubai skyline. Tetris creator Alexei Pajitnov, I think is how you say it, is quoted as saying, "One of my biggest dreams has been to see it played with drones, so I'm thrilled to see that dream come to life." I think that's the weird dream, right, Jen? Like, I want to see my creation in drone form.
I mean, what better way to see your name in lights, though, right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I would love, is that Blue Scooty sitting there playing it or no? No, I don't think it is. I would love to get my hands on this. Like, this picture's fantastic.
It's amazing. We'll link the whole article in the show notes. So before we get into the joy pros and joy cons of each Tetris game for today, what's our general history with the Tetris franchise? I mean, for like me, my dad had this for free with like Windows 93, and I had Tetris on like my first flip phone, but I've never been very good at it, so I never really got into it, and I've played the most Tetris for sure for this episode. Mike, what about you? What's your Tetris history as a series?
It's definitely something where I've either played it or things that are relatively similar to it. Like back on Windows 3.1, we had something that was like a 3D sort of version called Blocks, or
Okay.
Blocks 3D or something, which
Yeah.
sticks with me. And of course, just it's on so many things that it is something that I would play. So foreshadowing something that if you weren't going to plan on talking about, I was at least going to work in was like I think I've reached what I sort of was probably the kill screens on things that were not meant to play high speed gaming.
Okay.
Like I think I did that on a graphing calculator. Where the calculator's like, "Well, we're done," because can only do so much. And I definitely remember playing Tetris on a flight to Australia 20 years ago where I hit a point where just it couldn't react to button presses fast enough. And I can't remember being like, I'm kind of annoyed about this, but all things being equal, I suppose the processing power should mostly be going to keeping the plane in the air. So I'm not going to complain that like the thing in the back of the seat is not as fast as I would like it to be at this point.
I assumed this was like on your phone, but you were playing on the plane,
Yeah.
on the plane architecture. That's pretty dope, Mike. I wonder if that's included in that list of all the published versions. So Jennifer, Tetris, what's your story?
I have a pretty deep history with Tetris. I so my dad was in the service. I'll start with that. So we used to move around a lot. And one year we actually had to move in the middle of a school year. And so my parents bribed me to be okay to move in the middle of my sixth grade year with gifting me a Game Boy. So that was kind of like, and I'm talking the original Game Boy with the green screen and which came with Tetris. And so I used to sit in the back seat of my parents' Plymouth Voyager and play Tetris all the time on car trips. And then so that was really like my main feed for Tetris. But then I had some babysitting charges when I was in middle school that had the NES version. So after I would put them to bed, I would go downstairs and play their NES for, hours while waiting for mom and dad to get home. And then my mom also had Tetris for Windows on her computer. So we had two versions. We had the Windows 3.1 version, which didn't have any music on it. It was just the sound effects. But my mom would sit there and try to sing the Tetris theme because she would hear it on my Game Boy when I would play it there. And then we also had the DOS version, which actually, if you've ever seen screenshots of the DOS version of Tetris, it's pretty in depth. Like it's got all these really cool, they almost look like hand drawn Russian folklore pictures. And then they have music. I didn't know it at the time. I know now, but the music that's in those games actually comes from Russian opera, which is pretty cool. But so if you have a DOS machine out there and you really want to do like some deep dive into Tetris history, I encourage you to seek out Tetris. It's Tetris Classic, I think is what they call it now, but it's for DOS. It's pretty cool.
I'm looking at pictures. I'm like, this is sick.
It's pretty rad. Yeah, it kind of reminds me like a bit of like if you took like battle chess from DOS and then you like wanted to make sort of the Tetris equivalent of it. That's what it reminded me of
I would bet it's relatively accessible because at this point you can play a lot of the old DOS games online that people
on
have set up
emulators.
sites for those. So you don't even have to do the work of figuring out how to play it on your machine. You can just go someplace and play that
Right.
stuff. Because I've
Yeah.
done that for various things that I remember from like elementary school, where it's like we never owned this. I just got to play it half an hour a week, and so I saw the first half hour of this game a lot.
Right.
I was dumb when you said DOS version. I saw that when this game was first programmed, back in the 80s, he didn't have shapes. It was just characters.
Right.
It was like, little hashtags, each one representing a block. So that's what I expected was the DOS version. I'd been,
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, so I was like, oh, this is much better looking.
This is back the era where, basically, where you could just have just DOS, but also where it's even if you had Windows, you would start the computer up and then you would start Windows.
Yeah.
right. Right.
And I missed that.
So let's go through our four games for today. We're gonna kind of do what the joy pros and joy cons of each one, what we like, what maybe we don't like about it, and then after that we will talk about high scores, Mike, and then whether or not we've beaten it. So the first drop puzzler game ever, right? It created a genre for a reason. It's like Tetris is so simple that even with no one explaining to you how to play it, you could just fiddle with it and figure it out, in the first 30 seconds to a minute of playing it. It's just so incredibly intuitive. But I look at the screen, and what strikes me is that there's things that you wouldn't think they would get on the first version of the game, like the little preview of what block is coming up next. That's just so elegant and so simple that you'd think that would be in like the next version of the game, and someone would complain about, oh, you can't tell, and it's like, no, he was just like on top of it like that. And I think that there is just a visceral satisfaction with like when something fits perfectly into place, right? It's actually, I guess, called the Tetris effect, that satisfaction of like when you put a book on the shelf and there's just enough room for the book to fit, and you get that little dopamine hit of like, oh yeah, or like a good lock click, there's something just very primal about these blocks and how good it feels to clear them away. I just think, I just want to give it its flowers. It's such an ingenious design, but this music, Jen, can you lead us on a discussion of the original Tetris music?
All right, so this is Tetris from the Game Boy, which was released in July 1989. So yeah, you had three choices of music, and this was kind of a theme throughout the early versions, at least for Nintendo of Tetris. You would have three different pieces of music you could choose from before you went in, or no music at all. You could do that too, which I always found to be really boring.
Yeah, who would do that?
Yeah, right. So music A is the classic Tetris theme, Koro by Niki, which is a Russian folk song about. I wrote it down here because I just want to make sure that I've got my notes correct. So it's the peddler's song. So it's about like a guy who is striking a business deal with a woman, and on the surface, the two of them are striking a deal over goods. But we're not talking about physical goods here. It's actually more of a folk song about, other things, which I won't get into.
Physical things.
Yeah, physical goods, my friends. But I think what I loved about this particular song being chosen for it, and it was chosen by one of Nintendo's music guys at the time. This wasn't a thing that Pajitnov picked to put on there. It was actually Hirokazu Tanaka, who was part of the Nintendo music team. Chose this particular melody because it was just so catchy, and it was one that they could just loop and loop and loop and loop over and over and over again, and then be able to build upon. So you got music A right there, which we all know. You have music B, which is an original work that Tanaka wrote for both this version and the NES version, which we'll get into a little bit later. But it's a Russian-style dunka kind of dance. So it has like dun 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 dun, and that was the one that I usually picked when I played because I liked the sort of like go get itness of the melody. It just felt really, really exciting, and also when you would get to the levels where you would start running out of space and the music would speed up, that's when I would like. That one I thought sounded the best when it got really, really fast. And then Music C. Music C is where we sort of get into the more like classical world. So Music C is actually Johann Sebastian Bach. So you've got a German Austrian composer on a Russian game, and it is the minuet from his French suite, which is not really French music, but it's this very like proper Baroque sounding minuet. And because I was studying piano at this point, so occasionally I would put this one on too. And what I love is that when I was doing my research on this particular piece, I saw someone in the comments on the YouTube video had put a sort of a conversation with their parents where they were like, you can't play video games in this fancy restaurant. And then the guy responds by putting on Music C on Tetris. Or you like play Tetris with your pinky up, that kind of thing.
Yeah, amazing.
But I love the fact that like Nintendo's music team recognized that, this game was definitely going to be one that was going to go not just to their young gamers, but probably to, an older audience as well. And that they found this opportunity to work this very classy music into the game. It was just, and of course it becomes earworms, as you listen to it over and over.
B was the one that I was digging into and had seen, because I'm like, is this also a thing? Because the other two are. And finding some people referring it to as that it's original, but inspired by a Russian folk song called like Bradinsky. And then I started digging down that. And it appears that, in fact, that is people corrupting a theory that it was the Atari version had music by Brad Fuller, which was, I think, original music meant to sound Russian. And the suggestion was that B is basically a reinterpretation or inspired by that specific work.
Okay.
And I do not remotely know music well enough to listen to things and be like, oh yeah, no, that I can see that is the case. But it was just interesting where I'm like, oh, someone said it's this Russian folk song. Who did that? Who did the Russian folk song? And then it's like, wait, no, that's not what that is. This is all convoluted.
Well, and of course, this was, like the wild, wild west of game music at the time too, where people could lift from someone else and be like, oh, they're not going to know.
Yeah.
Who's playing the Atari at this point anyway? Like,
yeah. And when you talk about this of kind of just taking like, we're just going to take classical music and put this in here to draw us back on movies. Weirdly, what this reminded me of, in a sense, of this way of, certainly at least with the first one, and then also using the Bach, where there's just like, this is existing music that we're just going to use in such a way that it almost becomes heavily associated with this.
Yeah.
Actually does remind me of early film when they were doing this, and something like, and this is an influence because I was just at Universal's fan nights and they have some stuff with the Universal Classic Monsters, and I just hear Swan Lake and I'm like, Dracula's somewhere nearby now. And I think that one is not so much now for most people, but this thing of like, this is definitely, it's music from one thing and we have taken it and it is going to be heavily associated with this other thing, not in a thematic way, just in how we've used it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you see that in Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, you know that Freddy is nearby when you start hearing the Toreadors from Carmen. It's that like weird, creepy music box version that they put in there. So it's funny when I hear, when I play that music, because we play concert versions of the music from Carmen a lot on the air, and sometimes like a kid will write in, and will be like, "Hey, play that music from Five Nights at Freddy's," and I'll be like, "What? Which one?" "Oh yeah, Toreador, duh."
That's like when a kid says like, "Oh, Goku, he's from Fortnite," and it's like, "Urgh."
No, no.
But wild though that you brought up the Toreador because so shout out to Jeremy from Ultra Dolphin Revolution. He jumped on Nintendo Switch Online with me just about half an hour ago so I could try these multiplayer modes. Because I tried to play with my wife on my Switch and my Switch 2. Not to brag, Jen, but I have a Switch and a Switch 2. Um,
What?
and but you can't play with yourself on Nintendo. But I tried to play with myself on the two different Switches, and it said, "No, no, we know it's still you on the other console." So I needed somebody to join me. And the two-player mode on the original Tetris is actually kind of cute because player one is Mario and player two is Luigi.
That's right.
And when one player wins and one player loses, they're treated to different cutscenes. One is the winner is looking at the camera, all celebrating, and then the on the other screen is looking away from the camera, dejected. But if you put them side by side, you see both angles of the same sad or inspiring shot. And when player two is in danger, it plays the Toreador song. So what is the you said it's from Carmen,
Right.
but it's story wise, when is that used?
So it's so the Toreador in Carmen, he's this like super celebrity bullfighter. He's very handsome, he's very charismatic. At this point in the opera, Carmen has already sort of tricked a young soldier into falling in love with her, and he's left his entire family to go off with her. She's gotten kind of bored, and she also kind of is getting a hint that like this soldier Don Jose is not quite all there mentally. So her attentions start to turn to the Toreador, who's this big celebrity. And so every time he enters, it's like bum bum ba bum 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 bum. So he has this big, and he's, girls follow him all around. He's got his entourage. He has this very triumphant music that he comes in with. So I think it's funny that it's used as the player danger music. Because, yeah, I mean, in some ways it is sort of like Carmen danger music, because that her turning her attention to the Toreador is what kind of starts her downfall in the story of the opera.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of ominous.
Yeah.
Anything we didn't like about this one? I mean, it's a hardware limitation, so you can't really fault it, but I do think that of the versions we have on Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo Classics, this being just on that green screen, my brain does have a harder time reacting to what piece I'm dealing with because they're all kind of different shades of gray on green. And in the NES and Game Boy Color versions, my brain was like, okay, I know that shade of red. That's that Z's piece. And I'm already kind of planning where I'm going to put it without, I don't know. It just personally for me, the lack of color made my brain just that much slower. And as Mike said, when you get high up in this game, every millisecond counts. So I did, even though it's unfair to hold against the Game Boy, I did miss color in this version. Mike, you don't seem to care though.
No, because it's the shapes that matter. I mean, we'll talk about the NES, like that changes colors as you go. Honestly, though, I think the biggest thing here to return back on the music more, I didn't know until we did this that it's not that like I cannot pronounce the Russian version of the Tetris theme was not the Tetris theme for a bunch of the games, but it is here. It's not on the NES. It's not on the DX one.
Mm-mm.
So honestly, one of the strongest points simply is that does feel so iconic to Tetris, and this is the one that has it while you're playing it. So like that is its own selling point. Because like just to loop back to that, like it's weird to discover it has lyrics in a sense, only because my brain while playing it is going through the lyrics of it in the form of, I wrote down what this thing was called, The Complete History of the Soviet Union arranged to the melody of Tetris by someone on YouTube. Pig with the Face of a Boy is the YouTube account. I think is the original one, where it's this really well done video that is that music, and it's the history of Russia. And so it's like, I am the man who assembles the blocks from up above, and it kind of goes through the stages of Russian history, with the theme still being, the blocks falling from the sky kind of stuff, but as like Russia has changed. And I have those words in my head. May simply be, I don't think I played this version of Tetris much, so I've still associated Tetris and the Tetris music strongly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in that same vein, like the other thing comes to mind, it touches back to taking video game music a bit more seriously, is something that was somewhere from the vaguely early 2000s. And it's that point where I have no idea when it actually occurred. And it's now just like, well, it ended up on YouTube at this point in time, but that's not where it's from. So it's older to some unknown amount. Was the University of Wisconsin had an a cappella group called Redefined that did Nintendo a cappella, and they pick that Tetris music, and it's great. So an element of the Game Boy thing simply is that has the version of the music that, and not to say that the other versions are not good, it's just, if I really wanted to feel like I am playing Tetris, this one's actually one of the only options, which is, it feels really weird.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like Tetris without that Tetris theme. And Jen, you're gonna love this. The a cappella group Mike was talking about, on stage, they put their arms in the shapes of the pieces and like kind of just slowly crouched, so the audience was seeing human Tetris kind of playing out in front of them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think because they introduce it as, we're going to do some original Japanese music, and then it's just a medley of Nintendo music. So technically, this is the one that's not so much an original piece from Japan, but it's like, this is a bit of an art piece we're going to do.
It's Tetris.
It's Tetris and Mario and Mortal Kombat and Zelda and Dr. Mario, which is the one that I never knew, and they don't do it. I guess I don't know how you gesture like a doctor. And so that's the one, like, they do that bit, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is. And it wasn't until we played it a couple seasons ago, and I was like, oh, there we go. That's what that is.
So let's do high score and 39 years ago. Mike, score competition here. Jen, have you ever written down your most lines cleared in a Tetris game?
I mean, I could give you an estimate. It was probably like, oh no, I probably couldn't even give you an estimate. No, I actually have not.
You probably beat mine. So game type A, which is just the marathon, how long you can last. Mike, my best run was 78 lines.
On the Game Boy?
On the Game Boy.
I did not play as much on the Game Boy, so I think my best one there was only in the 40s before I switched over to the other game modes.
Okay, but I'm gonna give myself second place because Jen had this in the backseat of the car growing up. There's
Yeah.
no way you didn't get crazy good at this.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the only thing I didn't like about this version of Tetris was that it was so hard to find someone else who had it, so we could do a two-player mode, or someone who hadn't lost the cable.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a novelty when I was able to actually do the two-player mode.
If you have a Nintendo Switch, we can play sometime. Like, it's
Yep.
online play. Jeremy and I just did it. So the question then is, have either of you ever beaten Tetris on the Game Boy?
No.
Okay. Mike?
I mean, you can beat B.
You can beat B. So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, yes, because that's not that much.
Well, so are we counting anyone who's finished B or anyone who's finished B and gotten the best ending? What do we consider beating? What do we consider beating Tetris?
Then I have beat B, but yes.
All right. She Nintended.
Nintendo.
Family computer.
And Mike?
I don't know what you mean by the best ending.
So mode B has some presets that you select at the beginning. And so you to get the best ending of the game, you have to put it up to level 9, which is the fastest speed, and high 5, which means that you have junk blocks up to layer 5 of the screen. If you beat mode B at all, you get a musical ending. And if it's the easiest mode, then you get like one person playing a little accordion. And if you put the difficulty to the highest, you get a whole musical set piece, almost like you're at the theater, with accordions and string instruments and percussions. And Jen, is there a term for that Russian dance where you get low and kick your feet out?
I mean, I call it the Gopak, like the Cossack dance. Yeah.
So beating it on level 9, high 5, you get the most elaborate ending. So I'm definitely going to play it for myself because I Nintendo beat this with liberal use of the rewind.
Nintendo! Family computer.
Mike, you want the sound effect or not?
I don't think so because like I'm trying to remember how much I went through B on the because B on this and the NES are pretty similar.
They are. They are.
And I'd started with the NES, so I didn't put as much on this one.
Okay. Well, great segue into Tetris on the NES. Jen, you said that as a young babysitter, you spent many a late night with this game. What did you like about the TV version?
I mean, bigger screen, obviously. It was so nice to actually sit down there and my babysitting charges had a projection screen TV.
Ooh.
So I got to play it on a nice large screen and I did appreciate that there was color, but I didn't love it as much as I thought I would.
Okay.
Because I'm like Mike, where for me it was really like because for me Tetris started on the Game Boy, so I became very much visually associated with the shapes of the blocks and not so much the color. But I loved the fact that I was able to play it on a much bigger screen, and I did like the fact that there was some musical variety in this one too.
Yeah. I do think in defense of the color, I enjoyed how every time you would go up a level and it got more difficult, you get the satisfying like ding sound effect and the colors would whoosh, and they would all make a new shade. And like the color combinations are all very pleasing to the eye. Like
Not all.
it's
I didn't
okay.
like the all purple one. Like the purpley pink
Oh,
one
I
hurt my
liked it.
eyes. It
I
hurt
liked
my
it.
eyes.
Joy-Con though, like I mean, like you said at the time, big advantage to have this on the big home screen
Mhm.
television. But now, like on the Switch, like I can get the Game Boy version on the big television.
Right.
Like that's not really a thing anymore. And in fact, I play my Switch mostly handheld, so this is kind of a smaller screen because you have the frames because the proportions of the Tetris board are the same as the Game Boy version, right? It's still 10 across and however many tall. So they were like, what else are we going to put on the screen to fill the space? Give them statistics. Let them know how many of each block they've had. I'm like, who does Mike, you're a number guy. Does that do it for you?
Actually, that one of the rounds I was playing this, I was staring at that, being like, "The heck is going on?" Because I needed a square, and I got relatively far with just none of them. And I'm looking at that, I'm like,
Huh.
it's like, how do I have like 8 of every other piece and no squares? This is ridiculous.
I mean, you always think people are screwing you over, so you finally had proof. You had the receipts.
Yeah,
Like, that's
yeah. It's the point actually where I started to be like, I wonder because I do not know, and I did not look into this. Is I don't know if modern Tetris is random or pseudo random, and I feel like it may be random, pseudo random,
okay.
in the idea of humans don't understand probability correctly.
You say humans like you're not among us.
No, 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 I am as well. This is just,
Okay.
and so this is going to be a weird tangent. There's a bit off one of those like person solves crimes using math things where they were trying to find a serial killer, and they're like, we have no idea where he's based. These killings are just randomly scattered throughout the city. And then the person was like, all right, I want everybody to randomly spread out in this room. And what everyone did was spread out equally distant from one another. And again, that's not actually random. That's what people think is random. And in the same vein here, actual randomness means that you will end up with clumps, sometimes very weird clumps.
Yeah.
And I am curious as to whether or not later Tetrises are still the next piece can really be any piece, or if there is some overarching thing where it's something instead where you go, we're going to take, 3 copies of each piece and then just shuffle them. And that's going to be your order. So at the end, it's equally distributed. And then you just repeat that. And you can come up with ways so that you don't have why am I getting absolutely none of one piece for a long stretch?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm surprised that's possible because like gameplay wise, that's not great. If you're just being randomly denied that piece that you really need for a good run.
Or if there's like an algorithm where it's like, okay, the game has dropped so many L pieces, but it hasn't dropped a square in, say, like the last 30 pieces or whatever. Like, if it gets to that point where it's like, okay, I've seen too many of this.
Yeah, and it's just it is super easy to do the true randomness. It may not be as well balanced, and it results in people being very frustrated. There's a modern game that captures this surprisingly well. That's designed and comments on how people don't get how probability works. called Unfair Flips. And it is a roguelite where you just flip a coin and you are trying to get 10 heads in a row. And you start off with a coin that is it's an unfair coin, and so it only has heads 20% of the time. So you're powering up its chance of coming up heads. And just as you're flipping the coin, some of the text they put in is just like, they acknowledge like there is a chance somebody beats this game in their first 10 flips. It's not that likely, but it's also not, it's not so remote as it can't happen. And it's like, yeah, no, this is, and the flip side, there's no guarantee you actually win. Theoretically, you could just be really unlucky and never beat it because you just don't get the right flips.
I know all about unfair flips because of Pokemon trading card game. Hey.
Conclusion to that is I kind of like paying attention to the statistics to see how that was going.
There we go. Now we're back to Tetris. Okay. Jen, the Tetris NES had a new classical piece, not in the Game Boy, Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy by Piotr?
We just say Tchaikovsky. We just call him Peter Tchaikovsky. That's what we say. Yeah.
Any feelings about Old Sugar Plum and how it connects to Tetris?
I mean, this is sort of like a double dose of childhood nostalgia when you've got Sugar Plum Fairy, because that's in Nutcracker, right? Yeah. So I'm sure anyone of our generation can be like, at some point you either went on a school trip or grandma took you to see the Nutcracker on holidays. So this is probably something that, you remember from being a kid, and then pairing it with Tetris. What I like about this, so this is music choice 1 in the NES version, not Koro by Nikki, which we all know as being the main theme. So, but what I like about this is that it is unmistakably Russian because it's from a Russian composer, Russian ballet, but it's this neat sort of like late 80s ass like teched up version of the Sugar Plum Fairy. So it's got this really neat sort of like all these like cool arpeggios over top, and it kind of turns it into this nice little like tech jam, which I dig. And so that was usually it would be either this one or Music 2, which is Music B, that was also in the Game Boy version, that made up Dumka written by the staff at Nintendo.
Just to clarify, Music 2 in the NES and B on the Game Boy are the same thing? Is that what
they're the exact same one, but
okay.
one is a little bit faster than the other, but it's the same composition. It's just a different arrangement. But yeah, it comes from that same composer who's, I want to make sure I say his name correctly, Hirokazu Tanaka from Nintendo's sound design team.
So I brought a music first.
Yeah.
I did not realize that those are the same bits.
Yeah. So it's the same one. And and it's just weird because you have this version, like they put these, so this one comes out in November of 89, so just a few months after the Game Boy version, but again doesn't have Koro by Nikki in it. It has Sugar Plum Fairy. So I don't know if maybe that was a way for them to sort of like put a stamp on the different versions. Like, we're gonna have 2 very, very Russian pieces of music, but they're going to be different.
Yeah.
And so you have Music 2, which is the same as Music B from the Game Boy version, and then you've got Music 3, which is this very like atmospheric, it almost reminds me of something, because this was another original piece and I couldn't track down online who wrote it. They just said it was someone from Nintendo's music team. It could have been Tanaka, it could have been something that somebody that worked for Tanaka, I don't know, but it almost sounds like something out of an underwater level from like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, or like from a later Mario game. It sounds, and that one just annoyed me. I didn't like it. I just felt like it just wasn't exciting enough. It was a little too loosey-goosey. I was like, I need something that's got more of a pulse to it for what I'm doing.
I'm going to use very bad words and hope that you can hone in it. To me, it has a weird sort of rounded wooden sound to it.
Yeah, that's fair. I hear that.
Can you explain that in a way that like sounds intelligent? Because like I don't understand how to I'm explaining that with words that I don't feel like music words.
I mean, for me, when I think of that, it feels to me like it's not static, but it's almost like it's too nice. It's just like it's not exciting enough. It's too relaxed.
It's pastoral kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's too. For me, it was a melody that like I had forgotten about it till I went back to play this version, and then I like really like listened to the music, and I'm going, oh God, yeah, I remember this melody now. But to me, it felt forgettable, because when I think of this version of Tetris, I think of Sugar Plum Fairy.
Yeah.
And then the awful color schemes that I didn't care for.
It just doesn't capture the energy.
No, exactly. It's just like do 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 do. It's just like it was just too. It was too nice. It was too like abstract, I guess, in some ways. Like in a not. And I like abstract music, so I don't want to put that down. But this to me just felt a little too. It was not Russian. Like to me, it needed another either classical piece like the Bach that you get in the Game Boy version, or it needed to have that sort of Russian-ish feeling like Music 2 does.
It kind of feels detached from the gameplay and from the theming. So
Totally.
it's kind of like not really that. I got so excited when Mike was like, I'm going to use bad words, but he didn't. Okay. So I also think Mike covered not having what we associate as the Tetris theme is a big loss. And people are like, why did they cut it? And it's like, no, they developed these games concurrently.
Yeah.
Like, we just didn't know that, how do you say it, Korobinki?
Korobaniki.
Was going to set the world on fire and become
Right.
everyone's favorite song.
Yeah.
But also it's interesting because this game does not have a two-player mode, whereas the Game Boy one had the link cable. Interestingly enough, there is a unfinished two-player mode that you can access using Game Genie, but it's really disorienting because it's the two players on the one screen, but there's no visual separation between your two boards. So it looks like you should be able to go all the way over, but it's treated separately. And it's in the source code, like of the cartridge. Using the Game Genie, you can still access it. So you feel like with just a few more weeks of development, we really could have had a much better version on the NES. Anything else to say in praise or criticism of NES Tetris before we compare high scores?
Do we want to go through the long diversion about what a high score in this game is now?
I thought you said we counted lines in marathon mode. That's what my high score is.
Okay, I was going to bring up that this has been the Tetris version that has gotten the most attention in terms of community attempts to break records.
Right.
Yeah.
So one thing that's notable to that is because you talked about liking the colors because they're all easy to look at and they aren't at a point. And so this, do you have a whole section planned on this or can I divert?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Do it.
Okay. So Tetris on the NES was treated as having a kill screen at level 29 for most of the time that Tetris has existed. However, unlike other games that had kill screens, I think we talked about Donkey Kong's kill screen in that episode, and like Pac-Man's kill screen is very famous, where like the game breaks. The NES kill screen was you simply can't move fast enough at level 29 using normal human approaches. You hold left on the D-pad, it can only move so fast. And 29 is where that breaks. And so for a long time, the challenge was, or it was basically that is the point where a game ends, is 29. You just can't move the pieces fast enough. They speed up beyond what you can handle. And so much of the game became who could be the first person to max out the score, which people were getting done in like level 25, level 26, level 27 if you're really good. And so that's basically it maxes out at 1,000,000. People were able to push through that a few levels when a Japanese player who had played on the Game Boy started playing. And this all would have been like the later 2010s, I think. Like all of this is like within the last 10 to 15 years of Tetris advancement. Because he had played on the Game Boy, and on the Game Boy, you basically are tapping left and right. You don't hold down and the piece just moves. He'd gotten really good at tapping really fast, what they refer to as hyper tapping, and was actually able to get past what everyone else had been treating as a kill screen and could get into like the low 30s or something. And effectively, all of this started hitting points where like developers clearly didn't think you'd reach this. At the point where the score no longer works, you're at the point where they didn't really expect anyone to be playing. Then someone developed a technique called rolling.
Right. That's where you hold down the D-pad and tap the other end of the controller against your
Yeah,
other palm.
you hold it in a certain way because I've seen this at competitions. Yeah, you hold the old NES controller in a certain way in order to like roll.
And you're using kind of like inertia, right, Mike, to kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also that you're spreading out to, instead of having to be like you're using one finger to tap a lot, you're using your whole other hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like they've got gloves on and all kinds of.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
It's insane. It's fascinating, but it's insane in the most positive way possible. And that allowed them to suddenly go from like okay, now we're up to like level 32 or level 33, and just blew the doors open, which led to at some point those color schemes, like they're designed for the first many levels of, it's designed of, you get to this level, these are the color schemes. And that's having to pull from somewhere on memory. And as you start getting to higher levels and things start breaking, it starts pulling the like what are the colors supposed to be from places that don't contain that information.
So what happens to the game?
So, because ultimately all it's doing is it's reading a location and treat it as it's some set of numbers that tell you what color it should be.
Sure.
All the code is just some set of numbers.
True.
So when it starts pulling other locations, it just starts doing other colors. And so there's a couple spots, and people have figured this out, like, oh, this is going to become a problem later on, is like level 138 is where the colors start breaking. And this is like, normally it's like every 10 lines, you're in a new level. You get up to level 146, which is called dusk. And like the first person that hit it lost real fast because he's like, I can't see the squares anymore.
I'm looking at it right now. They're black.
They're really, really dark. There's another one called charcoal, which is 148. And now we're at scores, I think, that are in the millions.
Right.
That is basically just black.
Right.
I'm going to say like shades of black, not grayscale. It's shades of black. And so you can see it, but it's really, really, really tough.
Right.
And then you get one level in there where things are coded wrong and it's all this ugly shade of green and it's like 810 lines long because there's a bug in the code. So instead of being 10 lines, it's this massive stretch. And so this is all, they've broken well past what for most of this game anyone thought humans could do. And keep in mind, every time there's been like a new, how do we get past this? It was, you can't move fast enough for this, or you can't really see the squares here. Those are all ultimately humans aren't good enough. Level 155 is the first time you reach the kill screen. Everything up till then, and all of this comes from an amazing like 2-hour summoning salt video that will be linked, is people realized at 155 you reach the first point in the game where the game can crash, where it fails at being able to update the score when you clear a line. And there's some whole weird probabilities of which things that'll happen, and so just a couple years ago, and then you'd mentioned his name earlier, was
Yes.
Blue Scooty.
Blue Scooty, yeah.
Who was the first person to get the kill screen. Again, to coming back to that thing of you don't win Tetris, you just delay losing at Tetris, was the first one where no, Tetris lost, not him, if you want to frame it that way.
Yeah.
And so that's, why did I say that? Level 155. Slightly more recently, like in 2024. So I think he might have done that like late 2023. Massive explosion on this stuff.
Yeah.
Was Rebirth, which was that they basically realized if you keep going, because of how it's storing your level, if you can pass level 255, the next level is level 1. You're back at the start.
You're reborn.
And so to do that, you have to get past the section of the game where it can crash, which means you have to avoid it. And it's things like if the first line you clear on a level is a single line, it'll crash. But if it's 2 lines, it won't, kind of things. So there's this whole minefield there. So that was Dog playing Tetris in 90 minutes was able to effectively loop the game back around and got like 29 million points in the process.
You know why I love you, Mike? Because I was like, I like the colors. And you're like, no, because if you play like a god and get 15 million points, the colors become impossibly ugly.
It's this amazing thing of how, and it's fascinating because effectively things start breaking, but nothing breaks too much.
Right.
And because it's all relatively recent, like Tetris World Championships have been in Pasadena in the last couple of years, and I think I've had a conference at the same time, which has been really annoying because it means it's like, oh, this would be really cool. I have to be in a different state right now.
The first weekend of June, they have it as part of the Pasadena Retro Game Con because I got to go last year and I got to see Blue Scooty actually play.
Wow.
They had this whole thing where you could register. It was a fundraiser and you could register into group tournaments and try to beat Blue Scooty at Tetris. And it was great.
And I should note, he was like 13 or 14 when he did it, I think.
He was 13.
Yeah, 13. And Jen, at that Tetris championship, did they play like any Tetris music, like a live performance or anything? Or
No. So, and that's like one of those missed opportunities that I'm trying to correct.
yeah,
But
that's a crime.
yeah.
There's a much longer video about all this, but it's absolutely fascinating. Because I think like when he did that, there was someone else who had been going for it as well, like had just finished, got told in chat, hey, someone else is almost there, and just kind of like, and we're just going to watch him.
So I'm not quite that good, Mike. I cleared 56 lines in game A. So almost blue Scooty levels.
I cleared, in my playing the last couple days, I cleared 98.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Jen, any memory of your highest line count in Tetris NES?
On this one, no. I can I do have memories of going, I just really wish I was playing the Game Boy one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that thought too. But did either of you ever beat Tetris NES?
No.
I mean, not on A, yes on B.
Okay. Are we giving you the sound effect? Was it the highest, most difficult form? Level 9, high five?
It was not. I think I did 5, but I didn't set the difficulty up to 9.
I want to play it for you. You got to the end of it though.
Nintendo. Family Computer.
At the most difficult level of level B, you get a really fun kind of Smash Brothers-esque
Oh,
cutscene.
hey, look at Samus playing the cello.
Isn't that
It's very
cute, Jen?
nice.
Have you seen
Yes.
this before?
No, I've never seen this. Oh,
Yeah, so when you finish mode B, you get another musical performance, but this time it's Nintendo characters, and the more difficult your task was, the more Nintendo cameos you get. So
nice.
you got Donkey Kong with the drum, Pit with looks like a violin, Bowser of the accordion, Samus with the cello, Link with some kind of flute, and then Mario and Luigi kind of doing the fun dance as pieces of St. Basil's or Basil?
Basil. I say
St.
Basil.
Basil's Cathedral, pieces of it start flying off. So then let's quickly go through the third game, Tetris DX, released on the Game Boy Color in 1998. Big differences this time. You have a new mode called Ultra, which sets a 3-minute timer, and it's just a score attack. How fast can you get? Versus mode has also been improved. You now have this handy dandy bar on the left-hand side that shows you the highest block of your opponent. So you kind of get a sense without looking. Now, Jen, you said the Game Boy Link cable was only like 2 feet long. So
Right.
it wouldn't be hard to just lean over and look at their screen. But now, without looking away, you can get a sense of how they're doing. And this was the game where you can finally T-spin. And to me, that's what makes this the best playing Tetris. T-spinning is the technique where once your piece makes contact with a block or the floor, you can still rotate it. You can spin against the surface, whereas NES and Game Boy, it would stick. And so it really opens up a lot of strategies, and it lets you kind of maneuver your block, kind of like a worm going through a tunnel, if you're good enough at it. And then, there's some fun cutscenes in marathon mode they added, because all the Tetris games have sort of this space race kind of theming. And the idea is like the better you're doing, the better your space program will be. And so this one really leans into that. Jen said the space shuttle on the cover. So if you do better and better, your shuttle gets better and better in the final cutscene. But there's some fun ones, like one is a big champagne bottle. And so like the champagne bottle will take off, but then the cork will poof and shoot up. There's a Statue of Liberty one where like her skirt kind of blows up with rocket fire, which seems a little like kind of mocking of the US, which I kind of appreciated, to be honest with you. And then my one that kind of made me gasp. I don't know. I'm a cheap date, Jen. Okay, I'm real easy to please. The final cutscene, if you get the best rocket, the shuttle actually breaks orbit, and now you're in space, and then it turns upside down and starts dumping the tetrominoes. And I was like, oh, are these pieces from space? Is this like canon that we've been receiving blocks from the spaceship? Because I always thought it was just, I never actually thought of the idea of where the blocks are coming from. I never imagined this as like a physical event happening until it was in the cutscene.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
better interpretation of what the blocks are than other things have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your review.
I was thinking in Captain N, they're people.
Yes, yeah, Mayor Squaresley, as the Still Loading podcast likes to remember.
Which does mean that, like, when you complete rows, that actually is highly ethically questionable.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, you're cleansing the row almost. But so, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong though, the music in this, it's no longer classical. It's all like new kind of techno songs.
Yeah, it's like all these 90s jams sort of
Yeah.
things, or like 90s style, like trying to be. Okay, so what it reminded me of, just in general, this is sort of my blanket statement for the music in this game. It reminds me of like when a kid's show or like a family sitcom is trying to be hip and they're trying to like do their own version of something that's really street or really funky, or and that's kind of, it was like a square version. I mean, I guess it works for Tetris, but it was sort of like a very square version of like what 90s hip hop was supposed to sound at this point, because we're also at like the tail end of the 90s here at this point too. So yeah, it's kind of like what I would imagine, like someone like a boomer trying to write 90s hip hop was kind of what this reminded me of.
It's that flavor is kind of all over the game. Like the you win and lose, it kind of looks like graffiti. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught it because I obnoxiously rotated the covers in our earlier box art description or a discussion, I mean. But like it's Tetris DX, but the DX of Deluxe looks like it's written with a Sharpie. 'Cause
Oh
it's
yeah.
like it's the bad boy of the Tetris family.
Right.
So it's like, so I'm like, okay, but it just kind of bums me out because it's like technically this game plays better, but it loses something.
The scene music had a vaguely jazz-esque feel
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the best of the three.
That's the best of the 3 tracks, I agree.
And what I did find weird, I wasn't prepared for, since with the previous, we're just like, okay, I'm running out of space, the music speeds up. Here, the music just straight up like changes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it feels like more of a distraction because it feels more like the music's changed tracks rather than like the music is just matching what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's not like a subtle segue. It's just like it's very jarring. It's like, oh god.
Yeah. It's the cleverness of making the music speed up. I don't know if Tetris was the first game to do that, but like it is emulating the beating
Space
heart.
Invaders actually was the
Oh,
first.
there you go. There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. Although Mike, that was like a glitch, wasn't it? That sped the game up.
Yeah, just process it. It just
Processes faster.
yeah. There's
Right.
fewer things. It processes them faster. It speeds up
Right.
automatically.
Right.
But it's just so effective. Like just and the feeling of just listening to classical music and the tempo is increasing and it's like happening in the opera and the audience. Like you're getting it really connects you to the moment. Do we have anything else that we liked or disliked specifically about Tetris DX?
I mean, I could say something I did like about it, and again, this is more of a nostalgia thing. The color palette is that very like 90s muted pastel sort of thing, like
Yeah.
the art direction on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Sure.
That's kind of like what I get off of it. So this, I actually didn't mind the color scheme
Yeah.
so much. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think just like in general, the whole thing felt like it was trying too hard.
I noticed that too, though. Like the borders have kind of like this plaid sort of like skater sort of feel to
Yeah.
it, and so, I'm not mad at it, but it's just missing something.
It does just feel like I just would like honestly the music from either of the previous two.
Yeah. And you lose the Nintendo connections. The cutscenes no longer have Nintendo cameos. When we played two-player versus, it wasn't Mario versus Luigi. We didn't have any kind of character representing us. So I was like, it was kind of more fun earlier. Okay, high score 28 years ago, marathon record. Mike, I did a little bit better on this one. I got to 95 lines, and then the tomato soup on the stovetop started to burn. So I had to pause the game, tend to my tomato soup. Have you ever paused Tetris and then tried to jump back in when it's moving quickly? Jen, it's impossible. Like I was like, your brain cannot detach from this game.
No.
Yeah. So I think I could have done a little better if the tomato soup hadn't started to burn, but 95 was my record for this one. How'd you do?
147.
Okay,
Oh,
whatever.
show off. All right.
All right, Blue Scooty. Okay. And so, Mike, did you ever beat Tetris DX?
Not at the highest level.
I got the most impressive fireworks show by using Rewind to get it at level 9, high 5. So big firework for me, poof. But did beat Tetris DX.
Nintendo. Family computer.
So last game for today, Tetris 99, released for Nintendo Switch Online in 2019. You have this game, Tetris for the Battle Royale era. right? Fortnite, you have 100 players on this big island, and you're whittling it down Hunger Games style till there's one left. This is the Hunger Games of Tetris, where you see on the sides of the screen 98 other opponents, and you can see actually their progress. You see each individual player's tiny tetranimos, and then with the right joystick, so you're moving your blocks with the left D-pad, and the right joystick, you are targeting players, and you can actually either aim your cursor and target specific players, which I do not know who possibly has that kind of multitasking brain to do that. But the right stick, though, you can auto target. You can either target randomly, you can target weak players, because if you send them blocks and it kills them, you get a KO to your record. And it's really satisfying. It goes KO, and it feels really good. You can target people who, if you defeat them, you'll get a badge for doing that. There's little in game achievements. Or my personal favorite, you can target who's ever attacking you. So you kind of defend yourself against all sides, and it's kind of thrilling. It plays really well, even with all those other players connected to you in some way. You have all the things I love from DX. You got the T spinning. You got this nice. Mike, you like these colors, right?
You mean in particular, or just those are definitely visible, which is something that some of the NES ones did not do.
All right. So you like them better, at least. But my favorite thing is that, and I know other Tetris games that were more new than the ones we've talked about today did this, but you can see exactly where your block's going to fall. They give you this little landing zone, and you see the silhouette of where your block. And so it removes that anxiety of just fast dropping. Like, Jen, you don't like that, do you, Jen?
Feels like cheating.
Ah,
It feels like cheating. I'm just like, I kind of liked the excitement of like, okay, I see where it's going to line up. I'm figuring out visually in my head where it's going to go. I don't like that it's telling me. I would rather just visualize it myself and use my own brain to.
yeah. See, I don't like my brain. I like cheating with rewinding.
Came up in this. Did the fast dropping,
Yes.
was that in all of these and I did not notice, or was it
Fast
just
dropping.
Yes.
Well, you can hold down, but
yeah?
with this
Yeah.
one, Jen, you can tap up on the D-pad and it'll teleport to the bottom.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's instantaneous, and
Okay.
that's like high level players. Like, I mean, you got to do that to beat this game, but I am not. I am not nearly good enough, and I can't count the number of times I tried to insta drop and screwed it up. And that's the I hate that feeling. To me, Tetris sometimes feels like, the wait until you make one mistake you can't undo, and like that's just life. You know what I mean? Like it's too real sometimes. But one thing that Tetris 99 does is that it regularly has in-game events where it will theme the music and the background to different Nintendo franchises. So we've had Splatoon, Fire Emblem, Kirby, Luigi's Mansion, Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Metroid, Super Mario Brothers, and F-Zero events. Quite the list, Jen, but if you
Yeah.
had to save one of these, what's your favorite of these Nintendo franchises as far as music?
I mean, Luigi's Mansion is a jam.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
it's
my
a
gosh.
jam. Yeah. I mean, I really love when I found this really cool orchestral version of the main theme and have it on arcade. And it's just one of my favorite things. If I happen to like tune into it and it comes up in that particular like chunk of the stream when I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, this is such a good jam. Luigi getting that game that he finally needed.
And then he hums the theme to like give himself and, and
Yeah.
and when he gets scared, he'll hum it nervously. Be like, "Ah," and it's like it's so Nintendo. Chef kiss Nintendo. So
Yeah.
good. I
Yeah.
I hard agree. I love that. They also added some new team battle modes. There's Tetris Invictus, which is a multiplayer lobby only with people who've gotten the Tetris Maximus victory. So if you're hardcore, you can play with only the best of the best. Mike, you're a big fan of this game.
I am not.
Oh, you love F-Zero 99 though.
I think it's because to me, a racing game is inherently against people, and a puzzle game is against myself.
Oh, so you don't like the sabotage and
I see.
it's less pure in terms of math and gameplay for you.
Yeah, because there's a whole element to this is the strategy I have, and it's like other people mess with this.
Yeah.
It's not a succeeding on my terms or losing on my terms.
Okay. See, I'm the kind of person where when I lose spectacularly, I laugh. That's why I loved Mario the Lost Levels. Like, I think it's hilarious when I just get that screwed over. And so that's why I like this. So the one thing I don't like about Tetris 99 is that you can play online for free and the game's still being supported, which is beautiful. Like Nintendo has no microtransactions in a game where they could absolutely make a ton of money using microtransactions.
Yeah.
So they're leaving money on the table and not coming after kids who just, that's good. That's a good thing. However, to play the offline modes, to do marathon or local versus, you have to buy the $10 DLC. And that's weird because you get Tetris 99 for free with your subscription to Nintendo Switch Online. And at the base level of that subscription, you have single player Tetris on the Game Boy and on the NES. So why are you charging me for something that I already have technically? Like you're just charging me $10 so that I don't have to boot up the other game? That's weird. And how much money did you make from that? Probably a lot. People love Tetris. But I don't know. It's just a strange kind of nickel and dimey thing in a game that is otherwise very generous. So, Jen, I don't think you tried this one,
No.
but did you have any opinions on it or the music in it?
I mean, I love the idea that they kind of made I don't want to say they overcorrected, but they definitely made a huge correction coming back from the Game Boy Color version where it had, no Nintendo properties to having just every single major Nintendo property here. Although, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's no representation from Zelda in here, is
I
there?
don't think so. Someone
Yeah,
leave a
see,
comment, but I think that's a weird blind spot.
yeah, to me, just looking at the list we've got here on the screen, and then the list I made from, my research, yeah, I think there's probably a missed opportunity there with no Zelda crossover
Yeah.
stuff. But I do think, especially with this game coming out in 2019, just ahead of the COVID pandemic, I think it was another great way for people to kind of play games with each other at a time when we couldn't hang out.
Yeah.
It was nice to have this option to have this game when we had other things like Fall Guys also, where you could just like get a bunch of strangers together and play a game. Although, let me ask you, were you actually able to get into matches where you had a full contingent of 99 people? Like, are there enough people still playing?
I mean, it's hard to tell because at some point they do just fill it with bots.
Right.
But, you can kind of tell when the bots kick in because it's like boom, trickle, trickle. 40 people just joined. It's like, okay, I
Oh,
wonder
okay.
what happened. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you can't really tell. But it feels like a lot of people are still playing this game.
They may well just do it differently. In F-Zero 99, which is the same concept of get 99 people, you see sort of this trickle of other racers, and then once the clock is ran out, suddenly you'll just see half the field come up. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, the
Right.
back half was all bots.
Yeah.
This one, it would go, here's the amount of time, and it was filling real fast,
Yeah.
which to me is either there's a lot of people or they are dynamically adjusting that and know, there's not many people on.
Mhm.
It won't make a difference if we give you an extra 30 seconds. We're just going to fill things in sort of more consistently so you don't notice that we're doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've either engineered it really well so that you don't notice, or there's a lot of people playing.
But it feels like a well-made game. Like it handled really solidly. It looks good. It sounds good. You got that Tetris theme back. The
Yeah.
COVID notebook, whatever you called it.
Koro by Nikki. But yeah, it's
Okay,
like
okay,
it's
try
like
my
a
best here.
super EDM version of it. Which is, yeah.
I'm into it. I'm here for it. So high score in 7 years ago, Mike. I don't think I can count the team battle I did with Jeremy before recording because we did a team battle of me and my army of 48 bots versus him and his army of 48 bots, and it came down to just the two of us. So I don't think I can say I've gotten second place since it wasn't in an actual online lobby. So my best placement in Tetris 99, I got to 10th. And I would have loved to get to single digits just to be able to say that, but that's the best I'd ever done. Mike, do you know your highest Tetris 99 placement?
Somewhere in the 40s.
Okay. All right. You know what? Mike's one of the smartest guys I know, so I'm kind of happy that my Tetris scores, and I can't rewind on this one, so that's like a legit 10th place Jen. Like
Nice,
I do
nice,
have some
okay.
value as a person. Okay, I promise. Well, okay, so that brings us to the moment of truth. We've covered the Joy Pros, the Joy Cons, and every bit in between. So now it's time to declare these 4 Tetris games as NintenDO's or NintenDON'Ts. Jen, can we have you give us your 4 rankings first?
Yeah. Although I'm gonna leave out Tetris 99 only because I actually didn't get my hands on that one. I'm gonna say Game Boy, Nintendo, NES, Nintendo, DX, NintenDON'T. Yeah.
Oh no.
And for me, like a lot of that, it's the music. I just
Yep.
don't
really
like the
lose
music.
something.
Yeah.
You lose it. I get it. It's just, to me, it's like Tetris DX is like the middle schooler of the group, and like I teach middle school, so I'm like, oh, buddy, like,
Yeah. You're trying. You'll get there someday. You're
yeah,
just not
yeah,
there yet.
this isn't
Yeah.
quite right, but
I liked what it did change technically, but I think overall as an experience, I would just rather go back and play the Game Boy or the NES versions.
yeah. So for me, they're kind of weird to rank because like they're so similar, right? But I think they're all Nintendos. I think that you can try these games in what 2, 3 minutes, play a match. So try the Game Boy Color version, try the NES one, see what your personal preference is before you boot up Tetris 99. Because you don't pay $10 to play offline. You already have that. Just try one of the older versions. They have a cool history to them. They have this iconic soundtrack to them. So take a minute to try all three, and then when you're done, definitely try Tetris 99. I think it is definitely a Nintendo, bordering on Super Nintendo. Like I really like this game, even though I am not good at it. That's always been my barometer, is that if I can lose at a game spectacularly and I'm still having fun, that's a good game. If you have to be winning to have fun, I think the game design slipped somewhere. So all Nintendo's for me. Mike, what about you?
So I'm mostly going to treat a group of these as one block, so to speak,
Ah,
Ah.
with NES, Game Boy, and DX all kind of largely having the same core gameplay. One thing with DX that was disappointing was like the second mode, where instead of starting with a filled screen, it just moves the bottom of the screen up.
yeah.
And that there's something more fun about starting and being like, oh, 2/3 of the screen is mostly full and I can work my way down versus just, oh no, I just have less screen to work with.
Yeah.
But that aside, I would actually say I think it's more than a few minutes each because actually, like one thing I definitely did, I probably put like 3 to 4 hours between the last 2 days in streaming and just rotating through the games. Was also rotating through the music because part of it is there is the idea of like yeah well this is the classic Tetris theme, but the other music all kind of did work to different levels. And getting to on the DX, I like the third one. If you just start with the first one and be like, okay, this isn't working, it's impressive how much the music plays a role in this.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I think just the core gameplay is so strong. Like so much of how I've played this had no music and it worked.
Yeah.
So it's very much there are games that I think the music can carry it. In the same way, I think there's movies that the music carries a not good movie. Tetris really is. I think it's such a robust core game mechanic that it works with that the music can be a very good addition. But if it's doing the gameplay right, the music can't elevate it much more because it's already such a solid game to me. And then there's Tetris 99. So to me, it is Nintendo's for the first three, and I think I would also go NintenDON'T on Tetris 99.
Oh,
Wow. Okay.
okay. Well, that's exciting because with Jen not voting, that means it's a tie. So we get to throw it to our Discord. Let us know. Join the Discord at www.theoldswitcharoo.com and chime in on why Mike is wrong and Tetris 99 is really fun. And if you agree with him, go somewhere else. Um, well, so then let's get into our and standing rankings. Not Mike, not JMO, but the and in between. I personally lumped the first three games together at number 49 through 51 of what do we have, Mike? Like 104 by now, something like that?
109.
100 out of 109 games, I ranked Tetris, Tetris DX, and Tetris on the NES 49 to 51, right below Dr. Mario 64 and right above Teleroboxer. And I put Tetris 99 a bit higher at 35 under Sonic Spinball, but above Mega Man. I think if I was better at Tetris, I think it'd go even higher. But I think those are really quality games. Mike, where did you place these games?
So I treating three of those kind of as a block. I ended up going Tetris Game Boy highest, then Tetris NES, then Tetris DX.
Ooh.
Though the first two was I think I actually switched that twice. And I have them between 14 to 16. So right
Wow.
Wow.
below Contra Hardcore and above Mario Tennis.
Yeah, top 20.
And then Tetris 99 is between Wario's Woods and Breath of Fire at 76.
Okay. Okay. I was worried you're going to put those with some of our garbage fire games down towards the bottom. You seem to really be irked at Tetris 99, but I'm glad you don't hate it completely.
I think it's less that I don't hate it, I just don't enjoy it. Like it doesn't have a thing to hook me back.
Okay. I'd rather be hated than just shrugged. So, all right. So, Mike, will you let us know where these games landed on our mathematically combined listing?
All right. So bottom working up. The lowest one was Tetris 99, which is
Boo.
at 55. It is right below Echo the Dolphin and above Solomon's Key and Super Mario Brothers.
Okay. Jen, Echo the Dolphin, any love for that? That's got really famous music.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games that I think probably worked better on the Genesis.
Yeah.
But I never had a Genesis, so
Got you.
but yeah, no, I always appreciated the aesthetic of that game, but I never really played it very much. So
100%.
Even playing it, I can't play it very much and just enjoy the aesthetic. So
yeah.
But some part of me does love that placement because, like, Solomon's Key, kind of a puzzle, Echo the Dolphin, kind of really stressful and frustrating. So there's a
Yeah,
theme going
yeah.
on. And what about the other games?
so the other games, as we go up, they are unsurprisingly in a block because we both put them in blocks.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go through this chunk, starting with number 36, Kirby's Adventure. Number 33 is a three-way tie between Phantasy Star 4, Super Mario World, and Tetris on the NES. Then right above that at 32 is Tetris DX. Right above that is Tetris on the Game Boy. And then right above that at 30 is Mario's Picross.
Very cool. Very cool. So, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for today here. Going to call it game over. Jennifer, you have been music to our ears. Before you disappear from the screen, why don't you tell our listeners where they can go if they want actual music in their ears?
Yes, if you want to check out Classical California's arcade, you can find it through our different streaming choices at classicalcalifornia.org, or you can also download the Classical California app, which is available for all mobile devices. You can listen to arcade in your car. It's great.
It is indeed great. It sounds NE excellent. Everyone, join us next time for the action-packed sequel to Season 3, Episode 8. We are covering Ninja Gaiden 2 and Super Ninja Boy for the NES and SNES, respectively. Also, don't forget to visit www.theoldswitcharoo.com. There you can find links to our Spotify, Discord, YouTube, TikTok, and all the social medias you can shake a joystick at. Big thanks to Crystal Fields for our incredible intro song. And please, dear listener, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every click means a lot, and you mean a lot to us. Until next time, this has been the Old Switcheroo. We've been talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo. Game on, everyone. Looks like you have a little manifesto there.
Manifesto is a very good term for this. The ubiquity. The ubiquity. The ubiquity.
Ubiquity.
Yeah, I'm just gonna end this and get where I get this right. The
Okay.
ubiquity.
I want to play it for you. You got to the end of it, though. You can't stop me. I'm playing the sound effect. I'm not playing the sound effect. I'm playing the sound effect. Wait, what's going on? I'm playing the sound effect.
I'm gonna add it in post anyway, so it doesn't
All
matter.
right, fine. I swear this never happens, Jen. Okay.
What I've loved about just like Tetris in general, I didn't get a chance to say this in the show, but like I love the fact that like the game was spread almost like in a viral fashion. Like it just got put on floppy disks and it just like passed around Russia and in Eastern Europe, and it kind of reminds me of something like, you know, like the Nine Inch Nails Broken video that got like passed around on VHS, or like Faces
yeah.
of Death, you know, something like that. And I just love how it went from sort of like this like humble beginnings of just becoming this viral sensation to like a businessman going, okay, I'm going to steal this and make money off of it and sell it to Nintendo, and it becomes like this whole thing. But you know, Alexei, he's still involved in the history of Tetris, and he's getting a cut now, thank goodness. But yeah.
About time.
Yeah.
I appreciate that somehow comparing Tetris to Faces of Death isn't the craziest Tetris take that we've discussed.
There you go. There you go. Close second.